All right, why don't we go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Schmelzer. I'm a program manager on the Visual Basic team. And for about the next hour, myself and Shamez, another member of the program management team, are going to give you a first glimpse at some of the new functionality we're adding to the next version of Visual Basic, codenamed Whidbey. So specifically in this talk, we're going to spend some time and talk about some of the productivity features that we're trying to bring back to the Visual Basic environment to help you, as Visual Basic developers, write better code and write it faster and get it out the door more quickly. So throughout the course of this hour, I'm going to make some references to some other presentations that members of the Visual Basic team are giving. Highly encourage you guys to go to those, where they'll be drilling in on some more details of some of the stuff that Shamez and I are going to show. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to spend a couple minutes in slides, just a few, I promise. We won't have many slides today. But I wanted to give you some background into what our goals are for the product, what we're trying to achieve based on a lot of feedback we've heard from you guys, our customers. Then we'll spend the majority of time looking at a couple of those aspects, specifically the productivity and ability to sort of complete common tasks and develop your applications more quickly. And we'll do all of that through a series of demos. So as Eric talked about this morning in the keynote, one of the big things we've done is we really do listen, right? It may not seem like we listen all the time, but we really do listen. We're very interested in what you guys, our customers, are doing, what you like, what you dislike about the product. So there are a couple things that we've heard over the last couple years since VisualBasic.net was released. And those are really feeding into some of our primary initiatives or design goals for the product. Number one, increased productivity. Right? Visual Basic 6 was such a success because it truly was the most productive development environment out there. You could get so much done so quickly with a Visual Basic 6 application. VB.net, we had a lot of architecture work to do, right? We blew off the glass ceiling. We gave you full access to the platform. But along the way, we lost a little bit of that productivity, right? So Whidbey is all about bringing some of that back. And hopefully you'll see with some of these features that we're hopefully going to be addressing that and accomplishing that goal. Second, enable you to build really compelling, rich Windows client applications, right? Leverage the power of that desktop out there to build compelling solutions, right? I think I heard it best one time when someone said, click once and rich Windows applications, being able to deploy applications to my desktops, all the ease of web deployment, but with nice UIs and that kind of stuff, that's going to solve world hunger, right? It's just a little difficult to get it done right now. So we'll see. That's some of the things that we want to do is make that easier to build those rich client apps that run in a secure environment. And above all, the number one thing we've heard, never, ever, under any circumstances, prevent me from having full access to the platform. Is that pretty accurate? If it's in the framework, I want to have access to it from Visual Basic, my favorite language. So what do you guys think? Are these some good initiatives, good goals for us to try to hit? Is it still that time right after lunch where everybody's a little 8:30 keynotes coming a little bit too early in LA, experience the LA nightlife a little bit? All right, so there's another thing. I got to be honest with you guys. I'm going to cheat a little bit. The C# guys are kind of around the corner, right? So my counterpart in the C# team's over there giving a similar talk, how C# IDE is going to be cool and that kind of stuff. I told him that I was pretty confident that some of the stuff we were going to show you guys was going to get you so fired up that they'd be able to hear you over there when we showed you some cool stuff. So as you guys are, as we're showing this stuff, if you see something that's cool, don't be afraid to let us know. There's a lot of members of the Visual Basic team out in the audience. They'd love to hear your feedback. So, yells and screams when things are good, that's a good thing. Boos, you can keep those a little bit quieter, but we want to hear them. Oops, wrong direction. So increasing productivity, right? Number one of our big goals, increase developer productivity. A couple ways we want to do this, right? There's a number of enhancements in the rich client environment. In the designer, if you went to Steve Lasker's talk yesterday, I believe he showed quite a few of these. How many folks went to some of the WinForm talks and saw some of the new designer stuff? All right, well, we'll get some more of that in there today. I'll show you a little bit more of that here in a few minutes. So we've got some great tools in the IDE to help you lay out and build your rich client application. We also wanted to go and really revitalize the development environment, right? Bring it back to a nice, focused environment where you have at your fingers the tools you need and don't have to wade through a bunch of tools you don't necessarily want. So we'll show you that we've enabled profiling within the environment to let you customize the look and feel of the IDE to best suit your needs. Obviously, I mentioned power of Windows, right? Leveraging the power of Windows. Click once deployment applications, they're going to solve world hunger if I can only figure out how to build those things so that when I deploy them, they run, right? Sean Drain's doing a talk tomorrow afternoon, going to get into a lot of the simplification of programming against the sandbox. Things like debug in zone, IntelliSense in the zone, the ability to get your environment set up to target that deployment environment so you know as a developer what your customers are going to experience before you deploy the application to QA or hopefully way before you deploy it to production. Richer, modern, compelling user interfaces. Enabling XP theming by default so that your controls get the nice XP theme look and feel when you're running on XP. Enabling you to build applications that have the look and feel of Office with the fancy toolbars and menu controls and those kind of things right out of the box. And of course, really enabling you to work well with your data and pull data into your application. I mean, let's face it, most applications today, they interact with data in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's through a database and some business components from a web service directly against the database in a two-tiered environment, you're pulling data up, displaying it to the user. How many folks had a chance to see Paul Yuck's talk yesterday afternoon? Paul Yuknovich. Not many, huh? All right, so fortunately, Paul's going to be rerunning that talk on Thursday afternoon. I'll show you a couple things in our demos. We'll go a little off script here and show a couple more things in my demos this morning, just to give you a feel of the kinds of things you can do with data in the Whidbey timeframe. And finally, of course, full access to the platform, right? Visual Basic Whidbey is going to have powerful new language features, operator overloading, unsigned types, partial types, full support for generics, both production and consumption. Anybody know what generics are? All right after this, Amanda Silver and Stephen Lees are going to be doing a drill down into the power of the language and talking about advanced language features such as these in detail. So I encourage you to right after this, walk over with me and we'll check that one out. And of course, support for writing managed code in Yukon and the MS Build environment that was so gracefully displayed yesterday during the keynotes by Don and Chris Ann and those guys. All right, that's enough talking. Ooh, did I just mess you guys up? Okay. So let me switch over to my demo machine. You guys still good over there? Yeah, okay. So let's get in and just start working in the environment. As I say, one of the things we want to do is revitalize that environment. Did you guys catch that? I just launched Visual Studio, right? I didn't have to talk for 20 minutes while it was coming up. Performance. Obviously, performance in the runtime environment for your apps to deploy is a big thing. But let's face it, as developers, yeah, we can use a coffee break every now and then, but it'd be nice not to have that coffee break every time you restart the IDE. So we're spending a significant amount of time revitalizing the development environment, bringing back some performance. You also notice that I've come up with a profiled environment. So I have just a couple tool windows open, sort of a toolbar that's gone on a little bit of a diet. I only have a few options available, exposed directly on my toolbar, as well as the ability to just create a project. Basically, what this means is, through our profiling system, we've enabled customization of the IDE. As a nice benefit to this, you also have the ability now to save your own settings off to a physical file, right? You can export your favorite settings of the IDE to a physical file, put it on a network share, put it on a little USB key drive or whatever, walk around so that when you have to go and rebuild your machine, maybe move to a different developer's machine, you can just pull your profile in, and the IDE looks just like you like it. All your key bindings are there, your window layouts, all the things that you like are there, right there for you. You don't spend 20 minutes configuring the environment. Cool? All right, so let's go and create an application. We'll create a Windows application. And one of the things you may have noticed was I was prompted for a name of the application if I wanted to provide one, or I can just say OK. I wasn't prompted for where do you want to save it, what directory, what folder, that kind of stuff. So this is my demo machine, and I've been doing a lot of playing around. And you notice default was Windows Application 1, not 165 or whatever you may end up with, right? The fact that what we're enabling we refer to as zero-impact projects. So when you're creating an application and just kind of play around and explore a little bit, you don't leave all these additional project and source files around your machine. You have to then go and kind of clean up later. You'll have the option when we close the project to either save these changes or just throw it away and discard it, leaving no trace of what we've done. So, So one of the things, that's a great suggestion. Another thing that we are doing that I'm not going to be able to demo, unfortunately, in this build, is the idea of kind of along those lines of renaming, right? We have a lot of default names like form and button. Let's face it, we all go drag a bunch of buttons out, get things laid out, and then as an afterthought, start giving them real names, right? But you may have already written some code that's, next thing you know, a couple hundred build errors because the controls aren't referenced. One of the things we'll be enabling in Visual Basic Whidbey is the concept of symbolic rename. So to be able to just pick a symbol, so a control, for example, change its name, and we'll go through and change all references to that control as well, so you don't have those build errors. Cool thing? There we go. That's what I want. We are looking at fixing the event handler name, too, so it matches up. Obviously, we don't have to anymore because of the handles clause, but I know it would be nice to not have button1_click handles OK button, right? And actually have it OK button_click. So we're looking at that. All right, so let's write a little code here. We'll create a class. What kind of tour? What we're going to do is we're just going to take a little, everybody's been doing their lap around stuff all week, so we're going to call this the lap around Visual Basic Whidbey in the IDE and debugger. Okay, so we're going to do a quick tour, and what tour would be, complete without a hello world example. So I'm going to create a class, and in the class I'm going to put a function, call it say public function, say hello, and we'll customize this so that we'll take a username as a string, and then we'll return another string. Now, one of the things you're seeing here, I have to admit I don't have the data set up really well to support this yet. But you notice I've got a little tab down at the bottom of my IntelliSense window. It's got two tabs, common and all. One of the things we heard was, man, framework, it's huge, it's awesome, it's got so much power and functionality in there, but man, I can't ever find anything, right? I mean, suddenly my form that used to have 60 or so properties has got a couple hundred. Well, usually there's an 80%, 80-20 kind of rule going in there, right? There's probably about 60 or so of those things that 80% of the time are what you're after. So we've got the ability to put those into a common bucket and show them by default. All is still everything. So everything that's there is still going to show there. That little bit annoying, somewhat random hide advanced members thing, that's gone away. Those all just show up under all. The IntelliSense, the type ahead works and all that kind of stuff. So trying to give you the ability to focus in and have a good chance of finding what you need right away. Let's say this isn't a good example. My data is not real good behind the scenes there, but oh, what have I got going here? As string, and then we'll just return a string. Then, of course, using the power of my development skills, we'll do welcome to VB Whidbey. All right, so got a little hello world thing here. Let's see if this actually works. So I'm going to go, I'm in the design time environment. I'm going to go down to my immediate window. Let's say O equals new my hello. All right. Then we'll say print O dot say hello. Pass in my name. And we see that, yep, okay, well, I got a string back. Welcome to Whidbey. So what did I just do there, right? Normally, it's a class. I got to go and create a form or something, put a button on it, write some code to create the instance, that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to throw that code away. So what we've given you is the ability to, at design time, do some expression evaluation. Invoke your own code and see if it's working. Well, in this case, it's not quite working, so let's put a breakpoint in there. I'll go up, try it again. There we go. We'll stop here. Yeah, see, problem was I forgot to actually append my name to this. So let's go ahead and say @username and put a little exclamation point on there. Hit F5. Oops, not F9. Hit F5 and run it. And let me pull this out of the way, and you see that now we've got welcome to VB Whidbey J. So what did we see there, right? Under the debugger, well, actually, first of all, from design time, invoked my code, hit a breakpoint, which put me in the full debugging environment. I was able to make a change to the code that was executing under the debugger and continue and have my change applied. So the return of our good friend edit and continue in the Visual Basic language. All right, I love you guys. This is great. All right, so let's do something a little closer to real. So we'll create a public class called customer. All right, and in this class, we're going to have some properties. So we'll create a private m_first name as string and private m_ last name as string. And in our constructor, we'll go out and query our database to load up some data. Or not. LZER. All right. So, good point. Fair, fair. All right, so let's create some properties that actually expose these. So we'll create a property first name as string. We get our get. We're just going to return the current value of underscore first name. Let's create another property, last name. Come on, Jay. As string. And again, we'll just return underscore last name. So actually, I don't want these to be read-write. So I'm going to go ahead and take out the set method. That's all I should have to do, right? No. What happened? Property string. Where'd my... 1 second. Where'd you go? That's right. There he is. All right, so property without read-only or write-only specifier must have get and set. What's this little thing down here? It's not coming up. Let's try this one. There he is. Error correction options. So it's a pretty recent build. I just grabbed it last week. There may be a couple little quirks. So it turns out that the background compiler and the VB compiler, it's a pretty smart thing. It knows what's going on. And as a matter of fact, one of the things it can do is actually suggest fixes for common compiler errors. So in this case, it said, hey, there's really two ways you can fix this. You can actually implement the set, right, making it a read-write property, or just stick the read-only keyword in front of it. So let's do that. And bam, we got read-only. If it's going to behave, yep, there he is again, read-only. So offering up suggestions to common syntax errors and actually applying those for us. Awesome. All right. So we'll see some other things, and we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple hundred of these compiler errors that we'll be suggesting fixes for in VB Whidbey. I'll try to point out some of the other places where we'll do it as we're going through. They're not all wired up, obviously, in my build. But as you play around and play with Whidbey in the Whidbey version you have, definitely send us feedback. If there's some errors you run into that we're not fixing that you think we should, let us know. We love you. We're here to help you out. All right. So I got my customer. Let's go ahead and just do some fun stuff on a form here. So we'll do some advanced UI. We'll drag a text box out. Oh, wait a minute. That can't be right. Is that a text box that doesn't have text box 1 as the default text? Now, of course, it's so controversial, we had to give you a smart tag in case you really want it that way. So we'll drag 2 text boxes out here. Now, one of the things you may notice is, if I'm sizing these up, it's probably a little hard to see, but I'm getting little snapline guides on the side to help me line these things up. So we got 2 text boxes. Let's throw a button down here. Let's grab my button. As I move them around, you see he some fun with alpha blending. And he just lined them up down there. So what we'll do is we'll double-click on our button, and we'll write some code to create an instance of our customer and just display the first name, last name in those 2 text boxes. All right, so I double-click, got my event handler. Oh, here's something interesting. I don't have a lot of code in here, but you guys notice how in 2002, 2003, every time we add an event handler, sucker gets stuck at the bottom of the file, all right, at the bottom of the class, not anywhere near probably where you wanted it? Well, in Whidbey, we're now going and we'll look at your code a little bit, and we'll do our best to get the events placed in your code in alphabetical order around the other events for that class that they work with. And within a region, it'll work as well. All right, so we'll create an instance of our customer, dimcust as customer. We'll say textbox1.text. Actually, let's do it this way. me.textbox1.text equals cust.firstname, and me.textbox.text equals cust.lastname. Well, I got another squiggle here. I realize it's kind of hard to read the tooltip, but in the back, what this is telling me is that variable cust is being used before it's been assigned a value. right? So most likely at runtime, you're going to get a null reference exception here. So I've got a warning from the compiler telling me that I haven't assigned a value to this yet. So the obvious fix here is to go up and create a new instance of my customer. And now that warning has gone away. This is one of the areas we'll try to provide an autocorrect for you. So since we know where you declared that variable, we can go stick the new in there for you in that one. Let's go ahead and run this guy. Hit F5, click our button, and oops. That's not too good. All right, let's go back here. Set a breakpoint. Button. All right, we'll shift F8. So I got my first name. I got last name's right. Customer. Oh, well, all right, work with me. So, these things are kind of cool, right? I can always hover and see the values. Wouldn't it be cool if I could hover over like a more complex type like our customer object and drill in and see those values? And I'm not sure if it's in this build, but oh yeah, we can just add it to a watch from right there if you want as well. Or do the hexadecimal display. So obviously, as everybody so kindly pointed out, my mistake was I was using text box 1 twice. So if we hit F5, now we see the form as we expected it. Pretty cool? Pretty compelling app, huh? All right. Well, let's add even more functionality to this, right? Let's go ahead and, in addition to just displaying things in text box, let's go ahead and write these values out to a text file, right? Kind of a common thing to actually interact with files a little bit. So one of the things that we can do is let's go in, let's add some functionality to our customer class, and we'll just create a public sub, save to file, and we'll actually take the file name in here, this string, public sub. All right, now I can go and I can write all the code to do this, or in Visual Basic Whidbey, we have the concept of code tasks. So these are pre-built, ready to run snippets of code that equate to common tasks. Now, we've only got a few in the alpha and the PDC bits that you guys have, but in the final product, we're going to have probably about 500 of these that are just a categorized list of snippets. So in this case, we see a category working with files. Oh, and there's our good friend, write text to files. I'll choose that. And what we see here is that we've got a snippet of code that's not only been added, and ready to write text to a file, but we've also marked up the couple places that you probably want to change for your implementation, like the name of the file. Yep, in this case, we'll go ahead and put file name in here. And the actual line of text you want to write to your file. So we'll change this to customer information. And we'll say at m_first name. Actually, let's do last name, comma first name. We'll get tricky. Comma m_last name. Is that good? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Now you also see that in this build we're still working on a little bit of the algorithm tweaks for the definite assignment thing. So you see my output file is squiggled here because we don't really know in the finally block. Since we created the instance of it here in the try block, we don't know if you're going to have it in the finally block. So we're working some of those out. Let's go ahead and write some code here to write to the text file. So now we can just go cust.save to file, and just for fun, we'll put test.text back in. Well, we wrote to it. Let's validate that we actually did that. So we'll add another method to our class, and this method we're going to use to actually read those values back out of the text file. So one of the things you may have noticed when I was doing the snippets was when I right-click and say insert snippet, some of these are grayed out and some of them are available. We have the ability to specify a valid scope for the code snippet. So in the first case, we said this snippet should be used inside of a method body. Right? You should put it inside of an existing method or property. In this case, we've got one for reading text from a file that itself actually represents a method. So it's available to me when I'm sitting in valid method scopes. And we see that this is ready to run. We're prompting you, maybe you want to use a different name for your parameter. So I'll go ahead and say, yep, let's call it file name. You notice that we've linked those two instances of file name. So I updated the one. The other one automatically got updated under the covers. Cool? Yeah, a little less. OK. So you will be able to create your own snippets. the session right after this, over in the other room that Stephen, Lees, and Amanda are doing, Stephen will dive into two aspects of creating your own snippets. He'll show you our editor that we're going to have for creating snippets right in the development environment, as well as crack it open under the covers and show you that really what's under here is just an XML file that you can actually hand author as well. So let's go ahead and in our message box, let's display cust.read from file. We'll pass in our name, and we'll run it. So we'll go ahead and hit our button. Oops, got our breakpoint still. Get rid of that. Boom. And, uh-oh. File not found. Wow. Conveniently here, we see, yeah, this isn't rigged at all, was it? Conveniently here, we see our new exception assistant. Right? In Visual Studio 2002, 2003, when you had a runtime error, like an unhandled exception like we have here, you get that nice big gray dialog box, right? We might as well just put like some sounds behind it, having it laugh at you, because there's really nothing you can do, right? So you got a problem, and this is all the gunk we can show you, but you're basically going to stop at that point. Well, so the exception assistant does a couple things for us. One, he's got some cool blending, so we can move him around. All right, that's kind of gratuitous, but he's also got troubleshooting tips that we are working on getting better tips other than read the docs. So you get the ability to see all the details behind the exception, as well as, in this case, he's showing us that, hey, we can't find this file. So it's given us the full path to the file we're actually trying to find, something that, just looking at our code would be a little bit difficult to figure out. So in this case, we see that, oh, the problem was I didn't actually do the full name. I just called it test rather than test.txt. So now this is something that is just a result of this build. You won't have to do this in the final product. You can, but you won't have to. I can go at this point, and I can look at my call stack window. And I can see that, what I really need to do is I need to change that parameter that I passed into that method, right, the file name. I want to change it at that source. So I can go into my call stack, right-click, and say, unwind to this frame. At this point, it's unwound the call stack to where I'm now getting ready to execute this method again, this statement call. So I can go in here. So as I say, in the final product, what we'll actually do is in the case of an unhandled exception like this, where you don't have any exception handler that's going to catch this, right? Your app is going to die an ugly death. We will, by default, unwind you to the location, to the last user point, so that you can just start making those changes. You'll have the ability, kind of like a la VB6 days, to control when we break. So you can break on unhandled exceptions. You can break on exceptions any exception that happens that your code sees. You can break on exceptions that your code isn't going to handle, but may be handled by framework code around you, right? And in those cases, we'll give you the ability to either continue stepping and see the exception hunt happen, or break and start editing your code, in which case we'll do the unwind like we did there. And you'll always have the ability to drop down to that call stack window if you really want to. All right. So at this point, what are we missing? We got just about everything, didn't we? So what have we seen? We saw design time expression evaluation, the ability to look at my code, inspect the code that I've written in my project from the design time environment, see input and output, play with it a little bit. We can also evaluate things that are referenced by my project, so I can go make calls to framework components, that kind of stuff. We've seen how the debugging environment, really we've gone, this is what we could do. Let's do something fun. Let's go and put a breakpoint somewhere. Hit the button. Now, one of the things that happened, right, in Visual Basic 6, let's admit it. Edit and continue was great, but there's probably, well, actually, we got a lot of who's who in Visual Basic out there, so a lot of these people probably know it. But I would guess there's very few of us that could stand up here with 100% confidence and say, I know whether an edit I make in VB6 is going to allow me to continue or get that dialog that comes up and says, guess what? Either undo or stop, right? You really didn't know. The rules were a little flaky. Well, we still have a lot of rules about what you can and can't do when you're editing code under the debugger. So for example, if I change the method, the public name, it's not in flight, is it? That didn't happen. So let's take a step or two. How about that? So if I come in here and I'm trying to edit code, right, and I could go and try to change some things that are going to affect the public name. Wow, went off the demo script and look what happened. So what we should be doing Wow, that's embarrassing. So what we will be doing in Visual Basic Whidbey is actually giving you some visual cues as to what you can and can't edit. So for example, if there's a public member of an interface to an application or some code in an exception, try-catch block, that you can't edit when you're actually running under the debugger, we'll show that with a grayed background on it. We'll still let you change it if you really want to, because I know sometimes you're working through and you're like, yeah, that's the code I want to change right there. So you want to make the change. But we'll give you a visual indication that this is probably going to cause a problem. Well, also for places where we can't tell, like adding public interfaces and stuff like that, public members, we'll give you a green squiggle underneath it and let you know that, hey, you're not going to be able to continue with this edit. So just keep doing what you were doing. You're in the debugging environment. You have all the rich experience there. But when you try to hit F5 or step, we're going to have to put a dialog up and say either just stop or undo what you did kind of thing. So trying to give you a little bit of better sense of what you can and can't do within the debugging environment. Sorry, something happened to my demo there. All right. So I think that pretty much covers what we wanted to do. Let's switch back over to our PowerPoint deck here. And see, look at this. I saved you guys all these slides. These are all in the deck that you can get from ComNet, so you can go back and see the details of this. What I want to do now is bring up Shamez, another member of the program management team, to talk you through a new language feature we have in Visual Basic that we refer to as My. And so what My does is, My is another one of the ways that we will help you as Visual Basic developers complete common tasks more quickly. So Shamez, if you want to come up and watch the speaker. Got everybody awake now.
All right. I think, Jay, we have a great crowd here.
It's awesome.
VB lovers. Let's hear for VB. VB rocks, right? All right. All right. So this feature here, known as the My namespace, or simply you can call it just My, the goal behind this feature is to give Visual Basic developers, you out there, a very simple and highly intuitive access to common classes that you use for building your applications. The items exposed off of the My namespace fall into two main categories. The first category includes common classes in the .NET framework. Classes that help you read the registry, do some file I/O, maybe check the network, do some printing, do some logging. All of these common classes that you would use in building your application are now at your disposal like never before. The other category includes items in your project, your forms, and your web services, for example. These are all exposed through the My namespace. The top-level items inside My, so when you type in the Visual Basic IDE, you type My and you hit dot, you will see the top-level items in the My namespace. The names chosen for these top-level items and the groupings that we have chosen is such that intuitively it guides you to get to an item that you're looking for. For instance, the first item inside My is application. So my.application is all about your application. Any item you are looking for that relates to your application, for example, version information, product name, command line arguments, environment variables. If you do a click once deployment, you can get to the object that helps you get to the updated files. All of these classes that are related to your application are now exposed as instances of my.application. Then there is my.computer. And as its name suggests, it's everything about the computer on which your application is going to run. Anything that's inside the computer, the registry, event logs, serial ports, for example, clipboard, all of these classes are now exposed as instances under my.computer. Even peripherals that are attached to the computer, the printer, keyboard, screen, mouse, all of these items can now be accessed through my.computer. And you will see later in my demo that not only are these classes really easy to get to, they're highly simple to use. Then there is my.user. which is everything about the user who's currently logged in. Who is this user? What is this user's login name? What groups is he a member of? All of this information can be gathered from my.user. The other category that I was talking about, the forms and web services, you can, if you have a Form 1 in your project, you can get to an instance of Form 1 by typing my.forms.form1. And you hit dot, type show, and the form will show up. Similarly, my.webservices. You had reference to any web service out there. Could be, let's say, CNN's web service or Google's web service or a web service that you write yourself. Add a reference to it, and we'll expose an instance of that web service through my.webservices. Then we have my.resources. You typically use images, for example, in your application. Or maybe you want to localize your app so you want strings inside your application. You can add sounds. You can add any resource that you think of. You can attach that resource inside a resx file. You can get that resource back through my.resources in a strongly typed manner. Then there is my.settings. Your application will have configuration settings. You can access those settings through my.settings. And for my.resources and my.settings, you can expect a really nice user interface that will help you add resources and settings to your project. OK, I think I've done enough talking here. Let's move to a demo and see how this works. So what I have here is a semi-working application. And it's a low-end version of the Woodgrove insurance application you saw this morning in the keynote speech. So let me run this application, and let's see what status this application is in right now. Again, we are using the latest bits right now. Some of the work was just completed last week. But we wanted to show you the latest version so you can expect what's coming out. Going to come up. It is. Here, right here. All right, so some portions of this application is already working. I'm already reading some data from the database, populating my text boxes here. But I have a picture that's attached for this claim report. The picture doesn't show in the picture box yet. And up here on the title bar, it says Woodgrove Insurance Claim Manager, but I would like to show the user's name. Who the current user who is logged in, I want to put their name in the title bar as well. And then there's a print button here that I want to add some functionality to, print a report. So let's go add code to do that. So I go into my forms load event, and right here I will type So I want to get to the user's name, which is going to be part of my.user. So I hit my dot there, and I can go to user. I hit dot, and I can get those things that I mentioned before. Username. Is he a member of some role or something? All of this functionality is in here. I will go and pick username. And I'll run this application again, just to make sure things are working. All right, and it shows right up there. I should have added a space there. But it shows my username and the domain I'm a member of. All right, I'll go and add the code to attach the picture. So right in here, I get the name of the picture file, the JPEG file, for that claim. In this scenario, the image file is actually on an FTP server somewhere. I want to download that file, store it on my local disk, and then attach that picture to my picture box. But before I do that, I want to check, is there a file with that name already existing? Then I don't have to download. So that checking of the file is something to do with the file system. And the file system is inside your computer. So I will find it under my.computer. I go there, and there's something called file system. I drill in there further, and there's something called file exists. I pass in the path here. And I will put my if condition. So if the file doesn't exist, then I want to go and download that file. However, before I download, I want to make sure I'm connected to the network. So I'm going to check that in the network. Network, again, is part of the computer. So I check if my.computer dot something called network sitting right there for me. Hit dot. There's something called is connected. So I want to check, am I connected? If yes, then I'll go ahead and download. Again, downloading file is a network function. Go back to my.computer.network, and I will download the file from this FTP server. Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Download file, pass in the name, and pass in the folder where I want to save it to. All right, so once that's done, I want to now attach the image to my picture box. And I will run this application. All right, now we see images coming, showing up. And I go back and forth, and my pictures are showing now.
I still want to know how she got out of that car.
All right, the next thing I want to add is some code to print a claim report. All right, so I go there, and I go to my print button here, double-click on that. Go to the event handler here. Again, now I want to talk to the printer. And printer is attached to my computer, so I will find it in my.computer again. But here I'm going to use my.computer.printer all the time while I'm printing. So I'll put that in a with statement. Now what I want to do is I'm not going to print right now, but instead I'll send it to a preview dialog. From there you can print. But to show you the output, I will use the preview dialog. So I'll set the output type of this printer to preview. I'll say, OK, print line. And then I want to print a horizontal line just as a separator between the name and the image that I want to print. So I'll just kill that horizontal line, and that will put a line for me. And then I'll say a print image. So you can do your line-by-line printing here. When you're done, you need to tell the printer object that I'm done. So go ahead and flush the data. So you call ndoc, and it'll print. So let's go ahead and run that. So here I have my claim. Go and click on print claim. And right there, I see a preview dialog. All right, great. But this doesn't look that great. I just want to add some more formatting to this. So instead of typing a lot of code here, I'll just save some time. And I have some code here. Just drag and drop here. And just a few things here. You can, by line basis, you can change your font size. You can change the font color. You can set it to italic or boldface. You can do whatever you want here. You can even put an if condition in between, that if status is closed, then maybe color is green, else color is red, stuff like that. So you can control the output. All right, the next thing I want to add to this form is functionality for an about box. So I have an about button here. And in this event, I want to show an about box. But I don't have a form here yet. So I need to add a form to get that about box. Now, to take productivity even further, we will ship some templates of forms for you so they are already there, mostly functioning. Then you can just customize the way you want. So I right-click here, and I say add new item. And right now, we've just put together a quick and dirty about box. We haven't finished creating all the templates yet. But you can expect templates like an about box, a tools options dialog, for example, a login dialog. A lot of people like writing Windows Explorer-like UI with a tree view on the left, a list view on the right, with a splitter bar in between that's functioning and it remembers where the last position was. All that stuff we will cook up and keep it ready and ship it with the next version. So I'll go ahead, click the about box, and add that to my solution. So right here, things like the product name, product version, all this information about your application. It's about your application, so you will find this inside my.application. All this information is right there. You can just access it through my.application. But we go even one step further, and we actually add that code for you. So it's all functioning nice and dandy. So you can see here, my.application.appinfo.productname. Similarly, version, legal copyright, and all that stuff shows up. Let me run this. Oh, I missed something. I need to actually write code to bring up that about box, which I haven't yet done.
Hit pause.
Hit pause. All right. My friend, Mr. Schmelzer here, wants me to... All right. This wasn't part of the script, my friend.
Don't hit pause.
Oh. All right, there you go. There you go. Thanks, Jay.
I tried.
All right, anyways, we'll go back to here and add that code. So again, now it's a form in my project. I want to access that. So I go to my.forms. I hit dot, and we list the instances of forms that are in your project. I go and pick up the about form, hit dot, show dialog. Yeah. All right. So I click on the about button here, and the dialog shows up. I'm missing something here. I want to add a logo for this company right here in the picture box. So let's go add that. So in the current version, in 7.0 and 7.1 that you guys are already familiar with, we have this concept of regex files, the resource files, to which you can attach your resources. But right now, if you double-click on a regex file, you will get that XML editor. In Whidbey, we give you a really nice editor to edit your regex files. Let's go take a look at that. So now I can group my strings together. I can have images in here. I can even add icons or audio files or any other files, or even any other resource that's not categorized here. If you already have existing images, I could just go and say add existing file. But we also support drag and drop. So you could bring Windows Explorer, you know where your file is, just drag it and drop it inside the resource editor, and we'll catch that. So right here I have the, all right here I already have an image attached to the regex file for Woodgrove Insurance. So I will go and access that. So right in here, I'll say me.picturebox.image equals. Now it's a resource, so I can get it through my.resources. I hit dot, and I get strongly typed access to all my resources. So go and pick this Woodgrove logo right here, and we'll run this. All right, click on the About button, and here, my image shows up. All right, one more item that I wanted to show you was adding support for logging. So you want to log an event when something happens. In my case here, I want to log an event when my application starts, and I want to log an event when my application terminates. Now, to add a log event when the application starts, typically you would do that in the form's load event. But in Whidbey, we have a new application model, which is exposed through my.application, which supports some events. So when I start up, we fire a startup event. When we shut down, the application fires a shutdown event. So if you want to add some logic, some code, before the main form is showed, you can actually do that inside the startup event. So you will have a My Events file here. You can go in there and select Application Events. And on the right here, you will see all the events that we fire from my.application. So there's my shutdown in a startup event. There's my startup next instance that I'm going to talk about what it is. And we have an unhandled exception event. Startup event, I'll add my code here, my.application.log.write entry. So you already have an instance of log exposed through my.application. All you need to do is pass the text that you want to write out. Started in my shutdown event, my.application.log.write entry. While I'm here inside my shutdown event, what I want to do is I want to copy all my images that were inside my cache to another folder, a permanent folder. So I'm doing a file operation again here. So I'll go into the file system class, which is exposed through my.computer. And I'll do a copy file or copy folder contents. Copy file will copy one file at a time. In my case, I want to copy all my files inside a folder to another folder. So I'll select copy folder contents. Path is cache, images. And it asks me if I want to overwrite. If there already is a file with that name in the images folder, do I want to overwrite it? Yes, I do. Now, this is what's interesting here. Do I want to show progress? In Windows Explorer, when you copy a folder or you copy a really big file, you get that small dialog that shows you progress of how the copy is going so far. You also get that flying document off of a folder from one folder to another. We now support that in this API. So I set that to true. That dialog also has a cancel button. So if the user decides he doesn't want to copy anymore, he can hit cancel, and we'll cancel the operation. When we cancel, we'll throw an exception. So I'll put a try catch around here. And put a message box. And let's run this now. So my application starts. Before the form shows up, the startup event gets fired. An entry is written to the log. And to make sure, I will go to my administrative tools here, go to Event Viewer. So out of the box, we add log entries to the Windows operating system's application log. Right here. So I expand application, and you should see Woodgrove Insurance right here. So we added that entry right now. Right at 2:56. So you can make sure it's added now and wasn't added from before. All right. And I will now terminate. So the shutdown event will get fired. And here, you see the progress for copying the files, from which I can actually cancel. And the message box comes up. We have to work on the text here, but just to give you an idea of what this is. All right, the other thing here I wanted to quickly mention before I end my portion of this presentation. We saw here that there is a startup next instance and the unhandled exception events. The unhandled exception event fires every time an exception is thrown and you haven't written any code to catch that exception. So this is the last chance for you to actually catch the exception, find out if it's critical or not. You can gracefully exit at that point or just log an entry and continue. So you can use that event for this. Then there's this startup next instance. So with this new application model, what you can do is you can set instancing type of your application. If you set your instance type of the application to single instance, then the user can only start one instance of your application at a time. If he tries to start up a second instance, this event gets fired in your first instance, notifying you that somebody has just tried to initiate another instance. If they pass any command line arguments to the second instance, you get it in this event. So you can process then accordingly. The other feature inside this new model is the shutdown type. A lot of times, you don't want to shut down your application when the main form is closed. You want to shut down when all the forms are closed. So you can set that up as well. Under my.application, there's a property called shutdown mode. You can pick when all forms are closed or when the main form is closed to get that behavior. So I don't have anything to show you for those features right now, but you should expect those properties to be exposed in a designer. And I think Stephen is going to cover in the next talk. He's going to show you a demo for those features as well. All right, so I'm going to terminate here. Just a quick summary again. The goal behind my is to take productivity even further, to give you instances of commonly used classes inside the .NET framework, as well as instances of items that are in your projects. All right, thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Shamez. Okay, now I remember when, I knew there was something I was forgetting to do. When I asked if you guys went to Paul's talk yesterday, I didn't see a lot of hands go up. So Paul's redoing that talk, I believe, Thursday morning. So I'll give you a little teaser, right? It's all about data. So I said data was one of the things we want to do. So what I'm going to do, I'll add a new item, I'll add a new form to our project. And you see that we have this very helpful and somewhat aggressive window that came up. We affectionately refer to him as the data pimp. He'll be a little calmer later. Anyway, so this guy is basically asking me to add some data to my project. So I can click here and add a new data source, at which point I'm prompted through a wizard, and what we see is that we'll have the ability to specify what type of data source are you pulling from. Is it a database? Is it a web service? Maybe a business object, some kind of class that you're returning your data from? In this case, we'll just go ahead and choose database, since I don't have anything else cooked up. We can now create a new connection, or what demo of data would be complete without looking at Northwind. So we'll go and we'll say Northwind. We've now connected up to the Northwind database instance on my machine, and we see the various elements of the schema, the database schema that are available. So I can go through here and say, for my application, I want customers and orders. Maybe there are some stored procedures I want to use as well as defining my data source. In this case, we'll just go ahead and take the customers and orders. I'll click Finish, and Visual Studio is now going to go and add a new data source to my project. So we see in the data source window, we've got a list of the tables and schema elements we've added. Under the covers, and this is what Paul, I believe, will go into quite a bit of detail on later, is that really all we've done is added a schema file, an XSD file, to your existing project, right, that defines the schema of the data that's coming down. What's kind of neat here is what I can do is I can now take this customers table, just drag it over my form, position it here, and now I've got a default presentation that's already hooked up and ready to use. So in this case, we've got a grid. I could go down here and use our helpful smart tags, switch them over to a details form, right? And if I just press F5 at this point, we should be ready to run. And we'll actually see a list of our customers coming from the Northwind database. Oops. If we switch our startup form. Oh, boy. So we're going to have to, because of a little bug I think I've got, this will be fun. My.forms form2.show. Once again, using the my object here to efficiently redirect the user somewhere else. So we see that behind the scenes here we have another instance of our other form already wired up, retrieving data from our data source. So say just a little teaser. I know it looks like a real two-tier kind of thing, but you saw that we had the business objects, the web services as potential data sources that we could define over here. So now getting this automatic generation of UI admittedly needs a little tender loving care to make it look good. But it's all wired up, ready to go, and now I can just drag things around, design my application the way I want to. So just one more little tidbit for you guys. All right, let's switch back over to PowerPoint here. And once again, all these slides are actually up on ComNet, so you can go through and see what, a little more detail about what the Maya hierarchy looks like. So to kind of wrap this up, you guys let me know here. I mentioned those 3 goals, right? Productivity, revitalizing the development environment, making you as Visual Basic developers more productive. What do you think? Are we on the right track to hit those goals? And obviously in this quick demo, we didn't have time to get through and do really elaborate applications, but you can see that all the power of the framework is there. We have things like My that as Shamez showed, really provides speed dials into the existing framework, right? You have the alpha bits with you. So I'll caution you that what we showed were more recent bits. So there are some changes that we've already got in there. So when you look at what's in the alpha, things like printer, that's not there under My there in the alpha. There's also a lot of names of some of the things that we expose that need a little cleaning up. So we're doing a lot of that work. There's some implementation details in the area of My that you have in your bits that aren't completely accurate to the way they're going to be going forward. So just know that in the final release, this will be just pointing you to underlying framework objects, right? Or new things that are part of the framework that expose this functionality, as opposed to what you may see in the alpha. So at this point, the other thing we got, again, I mentioned there's a number of other sessions. Paul is rerunning his data talk on Thursday morning. The advanced language features immediately following this. Stephen and Amanda will dive into the details of the inner workings of the compiler, see how some of these things that Shamez and I showed you are actually working under the covers, how you can plug into them with your own infrastructures to extend them, and so forth. For debugging stuff, I showed you a little bit of the debugging work. Habib from the debugger team is doing a talk later today to actually go through in detail a lot of the other advanced debugging techniques that are available and will be available to you as Visual Basic developers. I believe he's going to show the visualization feature that Eric alluded to in his keynote. Very compelling thing for the debugging environment. Click once deployment. Sean will talk a lot about how we can help you, through the tools, build these deployable applications that run in a secure environment. And then if you really want to get down to the wire, Jonathan from the CLR team, in his talk on Wednesday afternoon, is going to actually show you how things like edit and continue really work. So he'll dive down and get into the gory details of how we enabled edit and continue from the Visual Basic environment. So if you really want to get down that close to the wire, I encourage you to go see that talk. So anyway, thank you guys very much. I believe we've got about 10 minutes to take questions. So if you want to, I think we got mics there. Don't usually do open mic, but we'll do it today. So if you want to go jump on the mic, we'll take questions for a few minutes, and then we'll kind of hang around as long as we can. Thanks again. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that on the had a custom event in there.
how much control do you have in the sense of, so the custom, I'm sorry, so how much, yep. Oh. So in the actual implementation for event logging, all we're actually going to do is expose to you the underlying tracing, the trace log stuff that the framework has. So we'll pre-cook up some configuration files that work to write it to an NT event log, when that makes sense. You can go through those same configurations, change that. You can implement your own trace listeners to do your own logging to a different mechanism, and my.application.log will still hook up correctly and go to your trace listener. Is that what you're asking? So it should be fully extensible. Cool.
Hi, I'm just curious if C# gets the same productivity enhancements that you guys are showing here.
There are some of the features are available in both environments. Some of them are only in VB.
What about all the My stuff?
The My stuff, My specifically is a Visual Basic language feature, so that will only be available from Visual Basic. You won't be able to type My in C# and have anything happen.
But to get access to those classes, like the computer or the application, you could add reference to the Visual Basic DLL inside C#, and you should be able to use those.
Yeah.
When Shamez did that demo and Jay provided his great suggestion of putting it on Osmo, what was that screen? Was that assembler?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of shows the
Could have been
disassembly right now. So the version we are using right now has some extra features in it that we're just showing the disassembled code here.
So, don't you think that'd be a kind of nice feature to end up having? Because then you can end up seeing when it ends up being disassembled into?
So that feature is actually in the product, and it will be there. By default, with the Visual Basic profile, we're not gonna have it enabled. But it's a simple tools option to switch it back on if you want to see that in those scenarios. Another thing I didn't show that I know Habib will be showing in the debugger talk is we have this concept of just my code. Those of you, how many VB6 developers remember the day when you could start your app, your WinForm app, by pressing F8, and the first thing you get is like your form load code or maybe submain code? Wasn't that nice? Rather than all this gunk that you run through now, init component, all that stuff. Well, just my code is a feature we've enabled in the debugger that allows you to do just that, right? Code that's in your project, in your solution, will be considered your code. Stuff that's generated by the designers by default is not considered your code. So when you hit F8 and step, we'll step you to your code and not the generated code. And obviously, as you're going through, you can enable and disable various pieces to be able to step into what you need. But by default, you're going to see your code. So it's one of the features that I know Habib will be showing that we're going to have to make debugging a little bit easier and more friendly.
In terms of the My.dot framework, are you guys looking to build in any kind of security context? I mean, some users don't have admin or user rights. You might want to do registry manipulation of a file. And other than saying like my.network.member of local admin or something in your server.
So the idea with My is that My is extensible. So one of the things that's not in your release for the PDC, but for example, user, will have the ability for you to set the user context based on your own custom I principal, right? So if you create your own custom authentication mechanism, you can do your own login code, creating an I principal, right? A principal or a custom principal, pass that to us, and then from that point on, all your developers that are using My.user will see your principal information. So by default, what you see there is the Windows authentication, right? That's kind of the default mode. So if you've got AD and that's what you're using, you're going to get all that information from Windows Integrated Security.
So you're not looking at local perhaps building that context?
We're basically using the underlying framework for this. So what the framework principal object gives us is what we're going to expose to you. Does that make sense? Kind of?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Will we be able to get new builds through the SDN or something else yesterday?
I'm not sure what the plan is for releasing updates to the builds. As you saw, you probably don't want them real often. Well, so you're going to have the alpha, as we said, as we've been talking about. We're planning a beta sometime in the spring. I'm not sure what the disclosure on that's going to be, how wide it's going to be, but I would assume MSDN customers will have access to that, but that's all to be determined. All right? Any more questions? All right, well, thanks. I'll see you guys over in the advanced talk here in a few minutes.